Retail leases, if you know me, you know these are my favorite types of files. I love retail leases. We do have a large portion of clientele here at the office that are retail-based businesses. So they will have stores across Canada, and we will read and revise and negotiate all of their leases. So we see a lot of retail leases here at the office. Retail leases differ from commercial leases in that they may have certain things in terms of the payment that is different from a regular commercial lease. For example, for someone who is leasing inside of a very small shopping center on the street, as opposed to leasing inside of a huge mall. In terms of the payment, retail leases will typically be two types of leases together. They will be a percentage rent lease with a net lease. I've talked about net leases before. It's essentially a lease that is base rent plus operating cost plus taxes plus insurance. Plus, there's going to be a lot of other pluses when you're dealing with a retail lease. But this is really the base of what we're talking about here. A percentage rent lease is essentially when the leasing company will be taking a cut of the gross revenue of the leasee. So this is how this usually works. Typically speaking, what they will do is they will take 7% or 8%. I say 7% or 8% because that's what's normal. If you're getting a lot more than 7 or 8%, you should be renegotiating that. But 7% or 8% of the gross revenue of the leasee. For example, it might be that they always take 7 or 8% if that amount is larger than the amount of net lease that they would pay, or that they take 7 or 8% of the gross revenue once it exceeds a natural breaking point. What the natural breaking point will be, for example, if the corporation makes $3 million that year, or if they make $1.4 million that year, then they will come in and they will take 7 or 8% of that amount. Otherwise, they won't touch it. That's one option. Or the second option is that if that amount of 7 or 8% of the gross revenue exceeds the amount of rent that they would typically get through the net lease, then they will take that instead. These are two different options that you have when you're dealing with a retail lease. This is something that you will always see across the board. The next thing that you will always see in the retail lease is your operating cost. Operating cost you will have in every single type of commercial lease. But in a retail lease, you will always have a very extensive list of things that are included in your operating costs. In that list, you will find taxes, you will find insurance, you will find structural repairs, you will find so many things. What's important here is that you have your lawyer draft up what we call a list of CAM exclusions. CAM exclusions essentially mean things that are excluded from the operating costs. And here what we will do is we will exclude everything where the landlord double dips. The landlord will always get a percentage of administrative fee along with the lease. So they'll get like 15% administration fees. If they're already getting 15% administration fees, they shouldn't be getting administration fees also inside of your operating costs. That's double dipping. We don't want to double dip. Here what we'll do is that we will cut out everything that is double dipping. We cut out everything that has to do with structural repairs. We will cut out a whole host of things. Taxes that are personal to the landlord, amounts of money that are spent for other tenants that only benefit them and nobody else in the shopping center, among many other things. Lawyers know exactly what needs to go inside this list. So make sure that you have one, read up on your operating costs and see what needs to be excluded from those costs. Because here you're gonna have a really hefty amount that you're paying. So you wanna make sure that the landlord isn't double dipping, that you aren't paying an exorbitant fee for things that you shouldn't even have to pay for to begin with. So make sure it's done properly. The next thing that you'll always find inside of retail leases is your promotional charge. Here you will always pay a certain cut to the mall for them to promote and advertise the mall. This could either be a certain amount per square foot, or it'll be a fixed amount, or it'll be a percentage. These are the three things that I talked about today. So I talked about the net lease, we talked about the percentage rent lease, the operating costs, and the promotion charge. This is something, and these are elements that you will see in all retail leases across the board that are with big shopping centers across Canada. But it's possible, and it is certain, that you're gonna have a lot of host of other clauses inside that lease that are really for retail leases, like things having to do with signage, and things having to do with hoarding, and things having to do with relocation. This is why I really stress it's so important for you to see a lawyer, because we know what needs to go in every single one of these clauses. So it's important for you to be able to assess and make sure that you are signing proper leases. There's so much more that goes into these leases, especially when you are leasing with such big landlords. You're talking about leases that go easily between 70 to 150 pages. So it's important that they're well revised, that you have a really good standing, and that you're very well protected. That's it for our segment today. I hope it was useful. I hope you enjoyed it. If ever you want us to help you revise your next retail lease, it would be my absolute pleasure. I love these kinds of files. You can find all my contact information below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We upload new videos every single Monday.